all of you. And like I said, it's a privilege to speak to all of you. Um, we will go easy and lazy because today is a Friday evening, and the topic is such that we have to. Basically, I have chosen the topic, which is a very lazy topic. We are talking about not even walking. We are talking about we're not walking the walk. We are talking the walk. And can I bring up a couple of my slides? I think I should be able.
So, like I was saying, it's a lazy topic because what I have done is we are not even walking the walk; we're just talking the walk. And also, people say you have to go out and walk. We are saying no, we are going to be walking within, and within doesn't still mean we are walking within the premises of our building or our house. We're saying we are walking within. So it's a zero distance walk. It's a walk which doesn't require any distance, but it's an important thing to do. And um, if firstly, if we are supposing we have to say why we should, in fact, I was just wondering, maybe the people who have not joined, they qualify for this talk better because we are being very lazy, and they possibly thought, why even bother about joining? So that question, why bother about this particular subject? Why bother about this walk within? I think if I have to give a short answer, it is so that we can rest in peace. And normally we use this term for people who are not alive, but I think it's a very important thing if one can be wished that they could rest in peace while being alive. It's actually kind of a cruel joke that we wish somebody who's no more to be resting in peace. But if I could, I would wish everybody rests in peace while they are alive. And firstly, is it possible? Life has got a lot of struggles. Things are always in flux. So, is it really possible for one to be resting in peace while being alive? And I'm choosing this objective very carefully. I'm not saying it's about happiness, because I believe peace is something you can have, or you can be with even while you're not happy, or even if you are in some of the saddest moments of life, or you are going through any trauma. Peace can still be your companion. Happiness sometimes could have, it's almost like a twin of sadness. The moment you have happiness, there is a likelihood that sooner or later you will have, like, night follows the day. So the objective we are looking at is peace, and how does one rest in peace while being alive. That's the objective. Before we get in, I think the one request is that we should, not even wear the shoes while we are walking. And when I say shoes, what I'm basically referring to is all the concepts, all the theories, all the beliefs, all the ideas we have about what it constitutes the within, a lot of spirituality, a lot of religion, and a lot of the ideas that we have about what it is. The idea for this particular session is that we keep all of that aside. We do not bring those things. Just like when we enter a sacred temple, we leave our shoes out, and we know we don't bring them with us. The idea here is to kind of follow that approach, that not let's not bring somebody else's ideas or thoughts or beliefs, but let's explore this ourselves, because this is not so much about knowing, it's about experiencing. And that experience doesn't happen with somebody else's eyes. There is no such thing as a second hand experience. All experience has to be first hand. So we're talking about this process of walking within, which needs to be like your own experience, one's own, felt experience. And there, a lot of these concepts and theories can actually be an impediment. In fact, a week back, one of the members had sent a video in the group, and you could hear him repeatedly say in that video that this video doesn't do justice, and you have to be here to experience it. And it's exactly that. Basically, experience is something that you cannot bring through any other means, not through any concept, not through any ideas. So what we're basically saying is that, when we start this walk, we will keep all of the ideas, all of the concepts aside, and we will try to keep it simple. We'll try to talk about how we feel when we are, venturing into this walk. Pretty much like, if I have to say, if I have a choice, one is I could reflect the light which is, coming from another star, or I could recognize that I could be the star, and I just have to burn my nuclear fuel. And unless I do that, I'm not going to produce the light. So the idea here is to leave all of those preconceived notions aside when we initiate this walk, and we talk about how we are going to be going ahead with this. So I'll also try and not bring any borrowed concepts while we are in this discussion. I'll try to keep it as close to my own experiences as possible, and I would request the same when we kind of getting into this conversation. So the next question arises, when we say walk within, what are we talking about? Within what? And that what is very important. What exactly, is it that we are getting into? And, this is something where I would say it's a single letter word, but it's a very heavy word. It's the heaviest word that ever is there, in the English language, and it's called the I. And you never say I, you say the I, because it has that gravity. You want to talk about I with that level of importance, and it's the center of our universe. The I is center of my universe. It's the center of your universe. It's the center of everybody's universe. It's that important a word. There is nothing really, really more important to someone except that particular one, letter word called I. And we're going to be talking about that I. We're going to try and talk within, walk within that I. So this walk is within the I. Okay, and we said it's a center of our universe. If I look at if I kind of ask a very silly question, that can there be a center without a boundary? you know and we will not find any other way. If there is a center, there will be a boundary, and if there is a boundary, it is bound to have a center. So center and boundary are like a package deal. They go together. You won't find one without the other. And the moment you have a boundary, the boundary has two very peculiar properties. One is it separates. The moment you have a boundary, that is what it is supposed to do. It is supposed to separate. So it separates my universe from your universe, and that's the nature of that boundary. And second is it limits my universe. It tells me that my universe is so much and it's not beyond, and likewise it does for everybody. Now, so far so good. If we were talking about a physical object which has a center and a boundary, it works. But we are talking about a biological entity which has got all the emotions, all the feelings, all the thoughts. And here the I likes one part of this boundary and it dislikes the other part. It likes the separation because that separation gives it the entity. The I becomes the I because there is separation, but it doesn't like the limitation. It feels, it wants to grow that boundary of it. It wants to expand. It wants to go beyond, and which is where the conflict starts. So boundary is always the place where you have this conflict, right? Everywhere, whether it is nations, whether it is neighborhoods, whether it is ourselves and our universes, it's the boundary where all the conflict happens. So we talk about the center. If we talk about the center, which is the I, we have to also look at the boundary. And together, there is a gravity. There is a force of gravity between them. I'm using. I said we will not bring up concepts, and you'll have to bear with me over here just for a moment. But believe me, we'll only restrict it to this because if I have to explain certain experiences, I still have to use some words. And the best way of experiencing it is in silence. But I can't express that, so I have to use some words, and which I'm just going to limit to few of these. So we'll still talk about gravity and peace because we said our objective is peace. So these are the four things we are going to talk about. There is a fifth also, which we will touch upon, but subsequently or in a later stage. Now, when we say we are going to walk within, I'm just going to talk about these four things, and we will just see how these play out. And as I said, if I'm bringing in a lot of these concepts, then I am talking about it from a knowledge perspective. But we need to be able to feel it. We need to be able to experience it. So we need it to be related to somebody. And therefore, what we will do is we will bring a frog on the dissection table, and there is a person who has agreed to be that frog, and his name is Rakesh Vajpai. So I'm going to put that guy on the dissection table, and I'm going to talk about him in context of these four things: center, boundary, gravity, and peace. Okay. So let's talk about this guy. Ashutosh, you were asking me, to introduce myself as a person. I said I'll bring it as part of the discussion. So this guy actually is a is a specimen. If supposing you have these stand-up comics who look at characters and then they create skit out of those characters. So this guy is that character. Okay, he's got his own peculiarities, which can be utilized by a stand-up comic to make a very nice, very humorous skit. So if supposing you go to a party and he goes with his friends may be all on the dance floor, and they may be having a great time. And this guy would be standing on a corner, and will be watching all of them. Inside, he wants to dance. Inside of him, he wants to be on the dance floor. He wants to enjoy. He's even rehearsing those moves in his mind, that in case somebody asks him to to come on the floor, then how he will do it. He's doing all of that, but he's not getting on the dance floor. Why? Because he thinks the moment he gets on the dance floor, all of the people around will have nothing else to do but to look at him, and they will judge him. And he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to be judged. He doesn't want his limitation to be shown. He's not sure that he's a good dancer, and he doesn't want that to be revealed. So he's a very pompous guy. This guy has a concept of himself, and he wants to protect it. So that is the eye of Rakesh Vajpai. We'll go a bit deeper into him. Look at his LinkedIn profile, and he'll talk a lot about his achievements. That he has done this, he's this, done. He's had this, education. He has got done worked in these many jobs, and he's got achieved these kind of things. All of that. Frankly speaking, if you look at it, it's these achievements have come about because of sacrifices of a lot of people. Does he talk about them? He doesn't talk about them. He doesn't talk about his parents who have really sacrificed for because of which a lot of things have been possible. Doesn't talk about his Hindi school teacher who was pivotal in initially mentoring him. He doesn't talk about his classmate who somehow got him to prepare for the entrance exam through which he went into IIT. He doesn't talk about his mentor professor who actually helped him in a lot of ways in his in his stay at IIT, and eventually actually to get him a job was something which was only because of him. Otherwise, this guy had his own peculiarities. He would struggle to find a proper good job. That's the kind of person this guy was. Then he went into his first job and he created a massive blunder. He did a monumental blunder, but his first boss stood by him. His first boss supported him, and all of that process, this guy had learned, he had grown, but it was always because somebody else was there who was doing certain sacrifices for him, providing all the support. Even right now, the organization he runs, number of times this company has gone into situations where people would have to bear with him, people would have to even wait for their rightful salary to come on time. So it's all of these people because of whom this person's LinkedIn profile might look great, but does he talk about them? He's talking only when in a session like this. So he's a guy who has also got a lot of I would say selective presentation. He has a story about what he is, and he presents that, and it's a very selective story. So now look at this person. He's the center we are talking about, and now the moment he becomes aware that no, I should not be looking at myself in this way, the next thing he would do is he becomes humble. He starts acknowledging all the people who have been a part of his story and who helped him. The interesting other side of this person would be that if some things have gone wrong, if he has suffered some trauma in his childhood, etc., he would be quick to put it on somebody else, that it was this situation, or it was so and so, because of which, or things were not just to me. So putting a blame, it's always the one who's outside the person's boundary. But taking the claim, it is normally the center which wants to take the claim. So then he becomes humble. He starts acknowledging them. He becomes so humble. He says, I'm willing to forgive people who may have wronged him. So the pompous Rakesh becomes a humble Rakesh. And then the moment he realizes that this still is a thing which is his eye is still there, and he says, okay, let me become a little more generous. And he gets into the mold of trying to help others out, become meaningful for others in their journey in life. And so the pompous Rakesh has become a humble Rakesh, then he becomes a generous Rakesh. Then he can go on, he can become a giving Rakesh. But in all of this, it is the so and so Rakesh. It is always you know an adjective and then this person. It's always the I along with a particular property. It is always the center is never alone. It is never that I'm never satisfied. If I have to, let's say, introduce myself, I am not satisfied introducing myself just as a person, and maybe I would just talk about how I'm reacting to the current moment as it is unfolding. But that is not good enough as an introduction. So I always need something to introduce myself, and it will always generally be either my past, my achievements, my knowledge, my people whom I work with, my surrounding, my family. So I always would have a property. The I does not have, is not, it never stands on its own. It always requires something which would give it so I would say identity. If supposing I have to look at myself with my center, then that center has nothing to talk about unless there is something else which I bring up. It could be my achievements, my knowledge, my my position, things I might have kind of done which I might feel are good for the society. So I would always bring up something to describe myself, but I'm not by myself. And this is one place which has been very helpful for me individually in terms of this process, and trying to figure out that why is it that the I always needs a property. It's never alone. And that's where, there is, I would say, this is a resting place. This is when we are on a walk. There are places where you rest and you relax and you kind of ponder over and see as to how far you have reached, and how much further you have to go. This is one place which I have found is something which has been very, very helpful for in my own journey. And everything that I have described for myself, I have not done it in a way which I would say is, it's, I mean, when I look back, I think that that's a journey which many of us, go through when we are in the midst of, achieving an ambition and all of that. At that time, it's me who's doing it. It's me who's achieving it. It's me who has, kind of been there, done that. And then gradually these kind of, realizations happen, and you kind of, try to look at the center, trying to become a little less, dominant, and you try to kind of become more and more accommodating. But all of that still happens, that I do it, I follow virtue because I want to be virtuous. So that the I wants to be virtuous, and therefore it does it. It never does it for this, very rarely, or after a lot of, I would say, understanding and realization, it does it for the sake of it. It does it because the moment demands that, and it's kind of, reacting to that moment without that I coming into the play. So this is one area where I have found, a lot of, I would say, a lot of my thoughts, a lot of my, not thoughts, but I would say insights have come in, at this point. That why is the I, never alone? And if you keep digging into it, you reach this point where you know that by default, the I is always lonely. It's the loneliness which causes the gravity. It's the loneliness which causes the I to keep acquiring properties. It is the loneliness because of which the I at the center needs to have all of these orbitals around it, in terms of people, in terms of achievement, in terms of knowledge, in terms of position, you name it. All of that is because this I is lonely. There is loneliness, and that loneliness requires something to be filled. That loneliness is to be filled, and because of which the I creates that boundary, and it kind of, it feels comfortable, that it has got something to be with. And this part is something which, I can't keep overemphasizing this. I think I've already said this, but this is where I think, if one rests here and doesn't kind of, rush too far, and just kind of, this place, it's something which one needs to realize internally. I can say this only for myself. I don't know whether this is very generic or, applies to everybody, but my sense is it does apply. If you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this I question, and see as to where is all of this coming from, there is this very thing which, in fact, I start calling it the loan, and I like this term instead of calling it ego, or in fact, calling it the I or whatever, because it describes what exactly the challenge is for this person. And there is not, it's not right or wrong. Being alone or the loneliness is not right or wrong. Some of it is conditioned by our biology, so when you sit there and understand, ki, why is it that I would feel lonely? Why do I, alone? In fact, there is a, we have a lot of books on pursuit of happiness. People would talk about pursuit of happiness. There is very little ever written about pursuit of attention. That there are, it's a need for everybody. Attention is a need. Right from the moment I am born, I need attention. I would cry because I need attention. I would feel insecure, I need attention, and therefore I would, I would seek that. And from childhood till now, my need for attention has not subsided. It is always there. I need attention. I need the people around me, the tribe around me, to look at me, to give me attention, to recognize me. It needs to validate me. Until I am validated, I feel that my loneliness is not taken care of. So this is one place where one reaches and sees as to maybe one has begun to understand that center better. One has begun to understand why the boundary around that center is there, and one has also begun to understand what is causing that gravity. It's a two-way thing. If I look at that boundary, all the things which I might think I'm owning, actually it's never one way. It's a two-way thing. If I own something, that thing also owns me. If I let's say have an affinity for, or if I have a very lot of investment made into a person, then I also need that person around me. I belong to that person also. Owning and belonging, if I have to say, they are like mirror twins of each other. So it's not only that I'm creating a scaffolding of all my belongings and all my property and all the things I have got, all my knowledge and all of that, and I'm standing on top of it. I'm also imprisoned by that scaffolding. I'm right within it, and I cannot move out because I'm part of that whole equation now. So it's kind of, the loan becomes trapped in all of the thing that it has acquired, the entire property which it has acquired. So this is one area where how do I now, if I now have got an understanding of, let's say, that center, that boundary, and the gravity, what do I do? How do I find peace within myself with all of this conflict which is there? The moment there is the boundary, there is this conflict. How do I find peace? Now, there is, you can keep fighting the I. You can keep, negating the I. You can keep denying it. One can say that, I can, I can win over the I, but it doesn't happen. The I would remain. I would say one is born with it. The identity is there, the boundary is there. You can dilute the boundary, you can reduce the gravity of the eye, but the eye remains. And the idea is to see that the power of the eye, how can that be addressed? And the best way is to basically give it what it requires, that is the attention. It requires attention from outside the boundary because it doesn't get the attention from within the boundary. If I start loving the lone that is there within me, if I start giving it all the compassion before I, become compassionate with the rest of the world, if I become compassionate with myself, if I try to understand where this loan is coming from, what that requirement is, what that need is, there is a very good, and I one could see that happen, that that the power of that center becomes little less, the boundary becomes a little more porous, the sense of ownership becomes a little less. One starts to feel the conflict kind of going down, the conflict at the boundary, or within the center keeps going down, and that sense of peace starts to arrive. So this is one, I would say, resting place again, where I would say that self compassion or self love is a very important part of this journey. When it's not about judging that loan, it's not about calling it this or that. Like when I was describing this frog on the table, and I was saying that it's a pompous Rakesh, or it's a generous, humorous, humble Rakesh, or a generous Rakesh. So I was giving it names, and which is what happens when you're looking at yourself and you're trying to look at that center. Sometimes it comes in that this is not how I want it to be, and then what it is and what should be, between the two there is a conflict, and you start judging that loan. That doesn't help. What helps is actually to understand that it is natural. Just what I must have gone through is something which almost everybody goes through, and then trying to accommodate that property of mine, to accept it, basically, to accept that loan as it is, and then work forward and see how it needs to be done. So this is one, insight I would like to share in terms of how, I have seen things happen. And finally, when we are talking about the fourth part of this whole equation, that is peace, one needs to understand this peace also. One needs to kind of, when you experience that peace, you need to know what it is. And, sometimes it happens very momentarily, but for it to last, that peace to be there in the noisiest of places, for that peace to be there in the saddest of places, or in the most, like I would say, violent of places, one needs to understand what it is. And it's not a thing. Peace is not something which one can get. It is an absence. It's an absence of conflict. It's an absence of duality. It's an absence of um, being torn. The moment the conflict subsides, the moment that absence, that what is there, moment that goes out, then you have peace. So peace is, again, not something to be found. Peace is something which comes when something has been let go, something has been removed, then that peace starts to come in. So, I mean, these are the four terms which, I have used as part of that explanation. So I thought I would, kind of give a bit of a explanation using me as an example, and trying to, bring you closer to that experience. Like in that video, it was said, that video never does justice to the place, and you have to experience it yourself. So whatever I have still done, I know it's a lot of words, still a lot of description, which would not possibly not come closer to how that experience is. But it's an experience worth having. It's an experience which does bring a certain amount of I would say restfulness, and something which has really been very helpful. There is a fifth, and I said that when we come to it, we will talk about it. And that fifth is the one which is experiencing all of this. That fifth is not the center. That fifth is not, nothing to do with that center. That fifth has nothing to do with the boundary, gravity, peace, all of those, things that we talk about. That fifth is, it just is. That fifth is someone which I can see, or I can sense that it is, but I have never met it. I have never met that fifth, and hopefully someday I would meet. And if I have to describe, I would say it has to be more a female gender than a male gender, because I believe the you know female gender has a little less of self, and this fifth, or this question, the one that is, has nothing or none of self. It has no self. It is something which is there, and it is experiencing everything that I have talked about. All those things which I have kind of all the experiences I have shared, there is someone who is experiencing it, and it is different from that center. There is a gap between the two. So that fifth is the one which is there, and I would say that it just, that's the place where I mean, I wouldn't call it an aspiration. I'm not even saying that, supposing that fifth, I never get to meet that, there is anything which is going to be lost in the experience, or, the walk is very well worth it, because at a practical level, it makes life much easier for me to live. At a practical level, it allows me to feel comfortable with the way things happen, to feel accepting of how the moment is unfolding, without trying to be judging it, without trying to kind of have a lot of expectations around it. So whether or not that fifth, the knowing and actually it's being, whether there is a difference, I don't know. But if it is, and if I meet it, fantastic. If I don't meet it, it is still fantastic. So at this place, I would say that, in the end, actually there is no walk, there is no within also. The moment one realizes there is a gap, the center is there, and there is this, there is someone else that is even experiencing that center, then there is no walk, because where are you walking towards? There is no center. You're not walking towards it. Then the best thing is to just be. Just let that is experiencing, that is the isness of all that is around, the presence, and just being. That is a very simple word. Be is a very simple word. It's a very difficult word to practice, but when one does it, it does give a certain amount of, I mean, that peace kind of, it's almost a companion of peace. So if I have to describe it, or if I have to kind of, come closer to it, let's say this moment is unfolding. We are all here, and the moment is unfolding. There's a lot of known to this, and there is a lot of unknown to this moment. And when I am approaching this moment, one is I may be present to it, or I may be burdened. I may have a lot of other thoughts, other ideas, some things are keeping my mind. So I am not being present to how what is happening right now. My attention to that particular present is not there. That is not being. Then a lot of stress and a lot of things arise. Second is I may be present to it, but I may not be liking it. It may not be to my expectation. That also creates a lot of stress, and it takes away the peace. But the way the moment is unfolding, and I accept it, and then I react to it. It's not that I just have to accept it and do nothing about it. I have to respond to it with all my attention. If I have to call, I have to describe what that be is in my little limited understanding. It is this. It is just being present to the way this, the moment is unfolding, and to be able to respond to that. So I think that's I would end it here, and I hope I have given some glimpses of what I have been going through in this particular journey. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Rakesh ji. You can stop sharing your screen if you do not
Yeah,
have it.
I'm
Okay.
doing that.
Yeah. Okay. So, any points, any questions, any insights from anyone? Okay. Indu Dogra ma'am has raised her hand. So, ma'am, you can mute yourself and you can talk.
Thank you so much, Rakesh ji.
Thank
It was a joy, pure joy listening to you. And despite your saying that we have to leave all our learning, our reading, and whatever we have, gained so far, leave it aside and then listen to me. Yes, I tried doing that, but it's difficult to unlearn, what you have learned.
you.
So, and then leaving it is even more difficult. So,
True.
while you were speaking, and I'm a great. I wouldn't say that I have read too much, but I'm a I'm really impressed by the life and experiences of Maharshi Ramana,
Okay.
and I was always intrigued actually, and I always wished that I could attend his sessions so that in order to learn who am I, that was the thing that he always talked of. Who am I? That was his only uh, uh, injunction to everybody. Whatever you go to and seek something from him and say, he would say that, "Find who am I." So your session today has really helped me to find that process. Maybe I don't know. I'll have to work it out. But well, yes, the center and the boundary, and then and then demolish the center also. Demolish the center also, and just be. Well, I could. I mean, these are just my. While you were speaking, all these things were coming to my mind. This is neither a comment nor an observation. This is what was happening inside me. When I was listening to you. So even the Buddhist shunyata, that too came to my mind. And oh, I mean, I can't say. I mean, it was an experience. It was definitely an experience listening to you,
Thank you
and
so much.
that experience probably will help me to you know do away with the rough edges which I am encountering.
Thank you so
So thank you so much. I really enjoyed listening to you. It was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rakesh.
Thank you. Ma'am, if I can just add just one rejoinder to what you said, I completely agree with what you're saying. But this is actually not a very easy journey. Also, it's a very painful journey. At times,
Yeah,
you really, one gets to see one's own nakedness, and one
yeah,
is not very comfortable with that. One gets
exactly,
to see one's own fears, one's
exactly.
own lust, one's own, all the ugly things, and being honest with one's own self and being able to recognize and not judge it, being accepting it that, this is how it is important. And ma'am, what happens is, I also I do consume a lot of, spiritual material, and Maharshi Ramana happens to be one of the inspirations, definitely. But this what I mentioned, the approach that leaving all that aside and just kind of letting that experience itself speak in its own silence. I haven't found a substitute to it. That is the one which kind of starts giving me a greater sense of then what all of the masters are saying. Once I am closer to that, then all of this starts to make greater sense to me. So that's the only thing I would like to say here.
Absolutely, Rakeshji. I mean, I'll just add to what you are saying, because this is what I have experienced. It is like, you move two steps ahead in your practice, and then you have to retrace so that you can pause and think. And, it is sometimes, you have to seek grace also.
Sure.
You can't do it without grace, because
Absolutely.
however effort you may put in, things don't really come to you. It is ultimately the grace which actually helps you go on and achieve. I mean, I won't even say achieve anything. I mean, just go a little ahead.
Sure.
So in what you are saying is absolutely correct. Absolutely.
What I need to do is I will connect from my laptop because my battery is running out on the mobile. Just give me a moment. I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
just
Rakesh ji, please do that. Thank you so much. And in the meanwhile, I can see that Mr. Dipankar and Avdesh Krishna ji have raised their hands. Since Dipankar ji has raised his hand first, so let him go first. So 1 minute, let Mr. Rakesh Vajpai get to his laptop. Then we'll start. Rakesh ji, you can unmute yourself. So, and Dipa, yeah, then we
Oh,
can,
I
yeah,
must
we
say,
can hear you.
I'm a little overwhelmed.
Okay.
It was my great thoughts coming from you. And when you started, I almost felt that you were representing all of us. But then somehow you came up, particularly the later half. I also felt, and you were to validate it, whether my feeling was right. I also felt some amount of entanglements. For example, your questions and your realizations were almost entangled, I thought, at different points. I have one small question. Did you ever think that peace is ultimately a decision? It may not be a state. It can be just a decision. That's the way I look at it. And I don't know if you have ever thought that way. And similarly, boundary is also a meeting point. So there is one me who is afraid to be in the limelight, so I want to be at the center and having a boundary, and the other part of me which needs help because I'm a social animal. So I need that boundary to become a meeting point with the society. Did you think that way, or I'm saying my mind? I don't know. That's all.
Rakesh ji, you are muted. Kindly unmute yourself.
So, sir, on the first part, actually, you have hit the nail on its head. Um, it's been, yeah, I mean, I can't say which one has helped me more help me find the peace more. Is it all of this, what I have just talked about in terms of the center, boundary, and all of that? Or just that simple realization that peace is the objective, and the mind has its own ways of reconditioning itself. The moment I realize that peace is the objective, it may have its own ways of rewiring all my network, and kind of finding that peace. So I don't know how much of all of what I describe really helps me with this process, or it is simply that the kind of, I wouldn't say seeking peace, but just kind of being aware that peace is the thing which I would want to kind of have stay with me all the while. So 100% that. I'm sorry, I wish the second part of it. You had asked me a thing about.
Actually, regarding peace, I said that I often get a feeling that peace is a decision rather than a process.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
And on the boundary, you said it's a meeting point.
yeah. Boundary is also a meeting point. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, there are places where the universes collaborate, and there are places when they get into a conflict, and all of that basically happens because there is an ownership of that boundary. The moment that becomes porous, then things become take a different kind of dynamic. So again, kind of getting into a bit more concept rather than experience, but yeah.
Thank you. Avdesh ji wanted to speak. Avdesh ji, you can unmute yourself.
Uh, so एक simple सा thought था, and I also thought I'll put it as a question. First of all, thank you. It was absolutely brilliant. मैं दूसरे time zone में हूँ, मैं फिर भी I dialed in because I didn't want to go to sleep without listening to you, Rakesh ji.
Thank
So
you so
thank you
much.
so much, and I think I really gained a lot. एक simple question था कि आपने जिस तरह से describe किया the people around in your life who impacted you, मेरा सवाल है कि वो आपका I का part है या आप अभी भी उन सब से differentiated हैं?
Very difficult to say, sir. Very difficult to say. Honestly, I don't know. This is a situation. I mean, it's not that the boundary just goes away, right? It's just that I mean, I would say my how I can flow into them is much more easy. If I meet another, I mean, I took those, examples of people who may have helped me, and they're the only two people whom I have the opportunity to say a very heartfelt thank, and they are still there. Is one is my father, and one is my professor mentor. But honestly, they're not waiting for any of that, right? But supposing now, when I meet another human being who may or may not have helped me, am I able to seamlessly flow into that person? And is that person seamlessly, like the Pankar sir was saying, is my boundary a meeting point? Is it a place where, that person feels welcome and I feel comfortable, having that conversation? I think so long as that happens, that all the sacrifices which people have made, maybe the fruit of that is worth it, really. So honestly, I don't have an answer to you whether it has really changed a lot of things in me. But yes, I happen to be a very recluse person. I would, I would say before this journey, I would be like, all my guards on, exactly the person who would be on that dance floor wanting to dance but not go there. So I have changed significantly over there. It maybe not be for very good, but that's how the journey has been.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rakesh ji. Any other points, any other queries from anyone? Okay, Indu Dogra ma'am has raised her hand again. So, ma'am,
Yeah.
would you like to talk? Yeah.
Since the topic of peace has come up, I just would like to add one line from T.S. Eliot, who's a 20th century modernist English poet. And he defines in his Wasteland, as a long poem, Wasteland, and there he defines peace as peace that passeth understanding. And he follows, although he's an Englishman, but he follows, the next line follows as Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That is inspired by the Upanishads. But peace is defined as peace that passeth understanding. That means this peace just doesn't have anything to do with the mind.
True, true.
Nothing to do with the mind. It is something entirely different. So
Absolutely, ma'am.
that's the little thing I wanted to add.
Yes.
Right. So, Rakesh ji, okay, Dr. Jha, after Dr. Jha, I'll speak because Dr. Jha also raised his hand. So I also had. Dr. Jha, kindly, yes, you are unmuted, sir. You can.
I need not repeat that. We all enjoyed this session. And this is a different kind of perspective, actually looking within, walking within. I have a small point to make and a question to Rakesh ji. How does peace and happiness interact with each other in terms of center, the boundaries, and the gravity? How does peace and happiness?
Okay, I will
Is
answer
there
it.
happiness once you have attained that peace, or peace has dawned upon you or passed you, as Indu ma'am was saying? And when do you actually uh, gain happiness? When you are happy? If you are at peace with yourself, are you happy? Or is it some other kind of relationship?
So I will answer it only to the limited, exposure of mine. I see that peace is got nothing to do with happiness, and actually, happiness is a unreal expectation. Happiness is an expectation which is bound to bring sorrow, because happiness actually is an expectation. Peace has got no expectation. Peace is, like I said, it's an absence. It's not wanting for something. You're not wanting to achieve something. It is, it is not, it's not, in that lack of differentiation between, not differentiation, but dispassion, I would say, between happiness and sadness. You kind of start accepting both, that if there is going to be light, there is also going to be dark. And so I would treat both of those very differently. I think the pursuit of happiness is a bit overrated, and it is also misleading. It's possibly the wrong mountain to climb and then go there and realize that you've gone the wrong one. That's how I look at it, sir.
Beautiful.
You have said it so very well.
So nice. Rakesh ji, I know that a major takeaway for many of us from this talk is your example of the center and the boundary. I the center, and we have a boundary defined with that reference. So I mean, I'll just speak the kind of experience or the thought that crossed my mind. That,
Yeah.
let's say, in this world of 8 billion people, now everyone will be a center for himself, and everyone will have his or her corresponding boundary. So there are 8 billion centers, 8 billion boundaries pertaining to each center, or rather say that 8 billion frames of reference. So probably that, to me, it answers many questions, in the sense that when we are interacting with anybody, we are talking to something, we are trying to find a solution to something, we just try to transfer ourselves to that frame of reference, like that person is the center, or that I is the center, and that I will have a corresponding boundary. So I don't know, this is how I felt about it. So is there anything that you would like to add to it?
Mm, I won't have a lot of comments on that. I completely agree with you there. Like I said, if I, let's say, if I and you were not known to each other and we still met, and if I was able to, welcome you without my center becoming, I mean, I'm not aware of my center, then I'm aware of yours, and therefore I'm present to your universe. I mean, I think that's exactly what you're saying, and I could fully agree with you there.
Right, right. Thank you. Again, I can see that Dipankar sir and Indu ma'am have raised their hand. So
Yes.
maybe Indu ma'am can go first, and then Dipankar sir.
I'm sorry, I'm again butting in, but I just couldn't resist putting this in. Uh, uh, what Ashutosh ji is saying, that brought me to two levels of reality. One is in spiritualism, they call it Vyavaharik Satya, and the other one is Paramarthik Satya.
Yes.
So when we are talking of the I in the center and the boundaries, which is very valid, because the world cannot go without that.
Absolutely.
So when we are talking at the Vyavaharik level, so we will be taking into consideration the I in the center and then boundaries and everything. But then the fifth one, actually in spiritualism, they call it the fourth one, Turiya,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that fourth one is which we all have as common, our common substratum. That is our common substratum. And there is no distinction. There we are all one, we are all connected. And that's the place which is the Paramarthik or the higher Satya.
True. True.
I hope, I mean, Rakesh ji, I hope Rakesh ji agrees with me.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, these two realities, the Vyavaharik and the Paramarthik, I mean, that's absolutely how, the scriptures talk about them. And the only, if I have to add a little, rejoinder, not kind of a, point of difference, but the moment we become less conscious of that, that whether I am on the, um, Vyavaharik, level, or on spiritual level, or the Paramarthik level, when I am, I'm reacting to this moment, when I'm attending to this moment, I think both of them can kind of happen together. They can synergize, It's not that I have to start behaving differently because I'm in the practical world. And I will find another moment or another opportunity where I can be living the Paramarthik Satya. I mean, the opportunity for me to live Paramarthik Satya is also in this very moment where where the Vyavaharik, realities also are present, So, I mean, I'm just saying that at a concept level, they are two things, two different planes. But when one has to deal with, we all deal with only this moment. We actually honestly don't deal with anything else. And when we are doing that, you know, we have the choice of having both of them together also. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, no, absolutely. You are absolutely right. And I think we have to put in a lot of practice for living in the moment, which I mean, I at least, keep forgetting. Either I'm in future or I'm in past. But yeah, we have to keep reminding ourselves and keep practicing to live in the present.
Ma'am, this is something. I mean, it all very nice to talk about in this session, but when I experience, I kind of. I mean, I'll give you a very simple. Sorry, I'll take just a couple of minutes. But day before yesterday, I was crossing the road, and I was obviously conscious of the vehicles coming from the right side, and somebody came and kind of bumped me from the other side. And in that moment, ma'am, there was no Paramarthik Satya for me.
Right.
There was only God. I didn't quite know from where that came into me. And I was almost like, "Ki, why this person has done this, So I mean, it's all wonderful, but actually, how I react to that moment is what defines me. And there's a lot of conditioning. There is a lot of
Yeah.
the way I would react to a stimulus is not something which I do with a lot of this kind of thought and awareness. Many times I'm not aware, So I mean, I am a huge work in progress. All of us are, and I think that's a great thing actually.
Absolutely right, sir. Absolutely right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Uh,
Yeah,
Dipankar sir, you
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
say something?
I'm audible, right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Actually, Rakesh ji, I basically wanted to give a clarification. I used the word entanglement, and I want you to know that it's more like quantum entanglement.
Okay.
Actually, my question was really to you whether I realized it right, that your questions and your realizations, they seem to be forming pairs, they're together. That's the feeling I was getting in the beginning part of your speech. And my question was whether I thought it right or I was totally off.
I think when I have to put it together, um, I I might have brought all of them in a certain logical sequence, but actually these two things do not come in that manner. They don't
All right.
they don't kind of come in a logical sequence.
Okay.
So they kind of come in a very scattered way. So I wouldn't say that the moment I get a question, the answer presents itself on its
Okay.
own.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's a very um,
Oh, I read
I
it wrong. So
yeah,
obviously I read it wrong.
yes.
All right. Thank you. And as I said, I'm overwhelmed. It's I cannot think like Induji. I'm zero on spiritual front. So I was trying to think the way I think, which sometimes matches with you, but the overall effect is that I'm overwhelmed, and thank you so much.
Okay. Any other points? Any other queries from anyone? Arun sir, are you there? Arun sir is there. Arun sir, you
Yes.
are unmuted. You can talk.
Whether I'm there or not there is something what I'm struggling to find myself.
Your eye may not be there, sir, but you are there.
I propose right now something. I'm proposing something.
Sure.
I mean, what Rakesh ji said, Indu madam, Avdesh, Dipankar sir, to me, they were like mirrors, in which I was seeing my own image. Some coinciding, some not coinciding. Notwithstanding whether they were coinciding or not, they were definitely triggering points. I need to think more about it. I need to live more about it. So can I propose that this group of people, I mean the one which is present today, could we again have a similar session maybe less formally without recording or with recording on Sunday. I'm just proposing that. Because other sessions have been so far one way. Others were receivers. Sometimes they gelled with it, sometimes they did not gel. This session, although is being taken by Rakesh, but he has triggered, and others who spoke triggered lots of points in everybody's mind, yours. To me, it has to be continued. शायद नहीं बोलना चाहिए. It's preferable if it is continuous. It continues. This is what's coming to my mind. So maybe we could have a session on Sunday and carry forward from this.
May I propose a little more than that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking if by some magic the video can come by tomorrow, then why to limit it for these 9-10 people? Sunday we may have a more open session with people who could not join today can join.
That depends on on Ashutosh ji, whether he can do it tomorrow or maybe on Sunday.
Yeah, I know it's a tough task.
So
but maybe
first point was, the first reaction of mine was, if you could continue. And naturally not now, because we need some cooling period. So more ideas get triggered. In my case, I take much more time than others to get more triggered point. So Sunday, I thought, I'm just proposing if you could continue with the same session on Sunday. I mean, in my case, even if there are 2 persons, 3 persons, I will be very happy. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, first time I went to Rishikesh, I did not know why I have gone there. Absolute nothing. I moved in an ashram because that was nearest to the place I landed in Rishikesh. After roaming around for 3-4 days aimlessly, suddenly I wanted to stay there for a longer time. It was not allowed because I'm not a member of the ashram, so they had given only for 3 days. They asked me only the Acharya can allow you to stay further. Acharya was in Hong Kong. So I was supposed to have met him in the evening when he returned for his permission. In the evening, I went to him after the dhyan. The first question that he asked me, who are you? Now, that was a very simple question. I could have told him my name is Arun Roy, this, that. But I thought coming from a spiritual person, maybe it has a more spiritual meaning. Many things came to my mind before I answered. One, of course, was Ramanna Maharshi. All those things which I had read about him, some understood, some not understood. But I asked myself, this is what Ramanna Maharshi says, who am I? Have I done any bit of Ramanna Maharshi to claim that I am the same I which Ramanna Maharshi says he is? The answer was honestly no. Or Gita or a number of things I had read, Main Atma Hoon. But what I asked myself, have I really practiced what Krishna says or Ramanna Maharshi says? The answer was no. The immediate answer was, I cannot answer this gentleman, who am I? So I told him, I do not know who am I. Why that came to my mind right now, listening to Rakesh or others, it has to, I who has to experience that, live that. Reading others or listening to others definitely bounces off some trigger point. Like the mirrors I was talking about, there are 10 mirrors around. Everybody is reflecting myself back. But it is I who has to, number one, experience that. More importantly, live that. If the car hits me from the right side, as Rakesh ji said, that is the test, you can say test, that is the proof whether I am really living what I have been thinking about, what I would have liked to live, what the Shastras say, what the Gurus say. If the answer is no, to me it is futile. It is not only futile, I have to work more on it, work in progress. So all those things that we have read, we are hearing, they come and they go immediately. Within no time they go. Unless and until I am entrenching into it, or I am allowing those to entrench in myself and practice and practice. This was my one reaction. And to my mind, I thought I will be immensely benefited if I listen again to Rakesh ji, Indu madam, Deepankar or Avdesh. Those question answers will help me clarify my own position a little more. So again, I'm ending with what I started. Could we have this session again on Sunday? Everybody who is free will come. Who is not free will not come. I would like to be there with Rakesh, definitely.
Arunji, your availability on Sunday could be a problem, right?
No, actually, that's a personal issue. I was supposed to go to Toronto on Sunday.
Yeah.
My daughter had just arrived now. I mean, the program, she came, she just now. Actually,
Okay.
I brought her from the airport right now.
All right.
So I'm free. So if I were not free, I would not have proposed that. So I
Yeah.
am definitely not only free, I would be waiting for next maybe 48 hours to await this session, to have a session with you and with presence of Ashutosh, Dipankar, Indu, Dilip. If you agree, I would have loved
It
to
will be a
continue.
wonderful one if it is an interactive one, So the burden will be on all of us to kind of contribute and get into a very helpful conversation.
Precisely, Rakesh. Yours
Yeah.
was the starting point, but what triggered me to have a Sunday on a session on Sunday was what Indu ma'am said, what Ashutosh said, what Deepankar said. It would be much better if it is interactive. So we don't call it a particular session as such.
Yeah.
We say meeting points. So if you
Yes.
propose, we can be there. I mean, I would love to be there on Sunday and just listen to again to what Indu ma'am said, Avdesh said, Deepankar is saying, how Rakesh is answering. Dr. Jha's question was just amazing, happiness and peace. And of course, the answer, happiness is a wrong mountain to climb. I mean, all these single words, these sentences, they have triggered so much in me that I'm basically a very garrulous person, all of us know. I just did not want to speak, except proposing that if you could have this pleasure again on Sunday at 7:30.
Okay, Mr. Dilip Trivedi has raised his hand. Sorry, if Rakesh ji wanted to talk.
No. I was just saying I'll be happy to do that. Yeah. I mean, I'll be happy to participate. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the
Dilip,
first thing I would say that I do not have actually sufficient adjectives to exactly express what I feel about this. One thing is very clear that this was one of the most relatable talk so far, as far as I am concerned. The situation that you described, Rakesh, sir, that wanting to be on dance floor and still not something holding you back. I mean, you experience that in various circumstances. People like me have done that, who don't want to, they are not so pushy or they don't want to project themselves. They're not comfortable projecting themselves. So, a lot of basically inputs for me, a lot of takeaways. That eye and boundary thing is something which I need to dwell upon it. Some of the techniques that you described, that dissecting, putting yourself on table and dissecting, I think we all do that from time to time, whether subconsciously or whether consciously in certain moments. What we need to do is probably do it in a more structured way and more regularly so that it will hopefully lead to better actions in future. Coming back to what Arun sir has proposed, I fully agree with it. My only problem is on Sunday, I have another session which is very close to my heart. So there is a conflict of timing. If it is possible to do it some other time on Sunday, because my session is on in the evening. Normally it used to happen on Saturday, but this time it is on Sunday. So that is my request. Otherwise, I will again wait for the video to come on this. And if Mr. Asutosh can make it happen on Saturday, do some magic or something, I don't know. It will be great. But because I need to go through again and, really go into it. And maybe if there are some doubts or clarifications, I can go into it. But absolutely, I don't want to use words like brilliant and all that because they sound so patronizing. But this is absolutely, it touched my heart.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Dilip ji.
Avdesh just wrote that he also is not free on Sunday. What time on Sunday, Dilip ji, would you be free?
I could be free anytime from 8 o'clock in the morning till, let's say, 1 or 2. My first half is completely free. If it is possible. Otherwise, please go ahead. I will.
I mean, it could be tomorrow also. Why does it have to be on Sunday? I mean, if tomorrow at 7:30 or 8 we can meet, because
It suits me. Tomorrow suits me.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, Dilip, because as you said, we all know those moments of peace have touched all of us at one point of time or the other, all of us.
Yeah.
But it just comes and it goes. Sometimes you take a pledge that I would try to be in the situation which resulted in the peace. You practice for a day, for a couple of days, in my case I'm talking about, and again it vanishes. You'll again try to recapture. I felt just like you felt, Dilip ji, that this was the first session that it was not one way. It was definitely all of us identified. So if I do not, I'm talking about myself, my mental inertia is very high. I mean, unless and I keep on hammering on the inertia, that shift does not break. It was a very selfish statement to make. If you could suppose meet on tomorrow, I mean, meet was earlier the better. Ashutosh can definitely put both the videos to us, maybe a couple of days together, because what I am proposing, and probably some of you would agree, I would not like to finish also tomorrow, maybe a couple of days again and a couple of days again. That is what I would love to have, depending on the availabilities. So why only tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow could be just a beginning. Maybe on next Tuesday, maybe on next Thursday. I'm just giving some examples. So let's meet tomorrow if all of us are free, or many of us are free, at 7:30. We can see the video later on also, depending on Ashutosh's availability.
That's okay.
Dr. Jha wanted to say something, I think.
No, I just wanted to say just one thing. The availability of today's recording is not mandatory for having another session tomorrow or day after. If tomorrow, it's okay with me. It's okay with me because we are on a walk and walk towards a highly difficult but achievable state. What the yogis called a state of being Vitarag, where hers, Vishad, nothing affects us. That is real peace. So more we'll forget what we have just discussed listen to Rakesh ji first, and then discussed among ourselves, maybe a week down the line. So we'll start again from the starting. So let's have a session tomorrow. Again, a proposal.
I'm all for
And
it.
the availability of video is not at all needed for having a follow-up session tomorrow. So can we let's have it tomorrow if it's
Dilip ji,
7:30.
anything? No. All right.
Yeah, I'm okay with tomorrow.
Okay. So, Arun sir, before we close, I just had one point, and which is not related to today's talk. Looking at the number of people who are able to make it to today's session, do you think having it on a weekday is an appropriate thing, or we should shift back to Sunday's sessions? Because Sunday many people are able to attend.
Yeah, Ashutosh, the data, the fact does not supplement what you are saying. I've been struggling with this all the time. I read some data also on the social media. They say that
Yes.
8% of the total number of group, if it comes, it's a good number. 15 is an excellent number. So since we have 70 people, 13 or 14 is a very, very good number. Number one. Number two, I have found that first day there were 33 people. But then on an average, it has been not more than 10, 12, around 10 and 12 on every Sunday. Today, there are around 8 or 9. So
It-
we had
yeah.
to take that democratic path, and this, most of them agreed for Friday. So we can have Friday or on Sunday, but rest assured, the number of people is going to be the same, 11 or 12. Two who are present here might not be present on Sunday. Three present on Sunday might not be available on Friday.
Right.
So you and I have already talked and discussed a lot, not a lot, but talked about it. So I do not have the answer. To me, Friday I chose because most people voted for Friday. By most I mean here the percentage doesn't matter much. 8 shows went for Friday. They also were available on any other day. 6 went for Sunday. Most of them are available on all other days also, except to Mimamsa and Vipul. There's one person called Vipul. So we chose because 8 is more than 6. But I'm totally fine with you if you propose on Sunday.
Now, the one more reason for Sunday is that people who are abroad, like people who are in US, for them it becomes difficult for them it is a morning. So on a Friday morning, it becomes difficult for them to join. Sunday morning,
Excellent.
of course, they can join. So
Yeah.
that is
One
another.
person,
Yes, very well.
one person from New Jersey, Anurag Srivastava, he wrote that he is not free on. But the point is, Anurag has not been attending any one of the sessions except one. So Anurag also, who said that he will be free at 7:30 if it is Sunday, he himself has not joined any session. I saw all the sessions except one. So let's think about, first of all, who are available at any time, because they are the ones who are really interested. And that is why we talked about Friday, because 8 went for Friday and I think 5 went for
Yeah.
Sunday.
Okay, we'll consider. But just to add, sorry for interrupting. Dr. Sarita comes regularly to all the sessions, and today she didn't join.
No, today she didn't join because there was a personal, her husband is coming back to US from India.
Oh,
Otherwise,
okay.
she would have joined. But if
Okay.
that is the case, let us again put it on the democratic way on the platform, on the group, and let us see how do people react. Number one.
Okay,
So
perfect.
we end up tomorrow we meet. I agree with Dipankar and Haji both. Dipankar, I agree because I myself in a frame of mind, when I see something again, I get more points get triggered. If it happens, but just because if it doesn't happen, there is no reason why we should not be meeting tomorrow. All these recordings will be available again. And after tomorrow, again, we are meeting, God willing, maybe on a Tuesday, maybe on a Sunday. So these recordings would help us ask more questions. So let's meet tomorrow with or without the recording. Is it okay
Yeah.
with you? All of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Rakesh, I will not say thank you. The word thank you, sorry, or like Dilip says brilliant. They have lost their meanings. But I'm very sure all of us know what the session meant to us today.
Okay. Anyway, so
Tomorrow?
yeah, we'll meet tomorrow and 7:30 same time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll stop the recording now. So
All right.
thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.